Cristiano Ronaldo, vai embora Cristiano Ronaldo, Balotelli, Aguero! Posse de bola para Portugal, vai Éder, chuta!
Olá a todos, sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um episódio do nosso podcast, os Panenka. Hoje estamos aqui para mais um Europa Panenka, com um convidado, o Andrew. Eu agora vou passar para inglês e vamos também falar aqui um pouco sobre o percurso do Porto, neste caso, contra o Shakhtar. So Andrew, tell us a bit more about you in the first place, and then we go to our clubs.
Yeah, my name's Andrew Todos. I am the main English language journalist that covers Ukrainian football and Ukrainian sport. I run the social media pages and website Zorya Londonsk on Twitter, Instagram. And also I am a co-host of the Ukraine Plus Football podcast, which is an English language podcast that covers Ukrainian football.
It's uncommon for us in Portugal to have English speakers talking about our football. That's really nice to Ukraine. So in the first place, I'm going to ask you, what do you know about Porto? Did you start to research more when they came against Shakhtar? How are you known with Portuguese football?
So, I mean, I guess I have been following Porto for a while, not particularly as a club, but because of some of the fixtures that they play. So, I mean, I think it was even probably before the draw, but when you played Aruka this season, there's a Ukrainian there at Aruka who Bogdan Milovanov, he was playing in that match, so I was watching a bit of that game, and obviously a crazy finish for that one for you guys. So it was quite interesting just to see, obviously, how Porto are coping, I guess, with the new squad that you guys have got, because obviously I think you lost a few key players this summer, and obviously I wouldn't say maybe a transition period, but at the very least, some new players that need to be bedded in, coping without those key players that obviously that left for relatively good money as well. Yeah. But I mean, similar to Shakhtar, which we will move on to later on, unbeaten start to the season, a draw, and a number of wins. And I mean, you guys are looking good. And the fact is, I feel that probably a key thing for you was that you kept Taremi, because natural proven goal scorer, player that comes in and performs well against big teams, especially in the Champions League as well. Mm-hmm. So it will all come in quite helpful. And I mean, from other perspective in Ukrainian football, we've got Anatoly Trubin, who moved to one of your rivals, of course, Benfica this summer. Not made his debut yet, but we're looking forward to seeing how he copes in the Portuguese league. May even make his sort of debut very soon. But obviously, he has left Shakhtar, so if anything, it's a slight positive for Porto that he won't be coming up against you guys in the Champions League this year.
Obviously, you are familiar with Pepe, one of the most known players in our squad. One element key that we used to talk with guests is Sérgio Conceição, because of how passionate he is for the game. How familiar are you with our coach?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been doing really well over the past number of years, and I feel that he plays some nice football. I mean, the start of this season, you've been winning games relatively narrowly, but getting those wins regardless. And I mean, you know how they say it doesn't really matter in the end how you win games as long as you win them. And I mean, for the time being, You're sort of grinding out results. Even that game that I was watching with Oruka, where it was sort of last minute equalizer. You've got that in your locker, regardless. So, yeah, I mean, I'm probably not too familiar with him, to be honest, but it will be interesting to see how Porto obviously do in this group, which I feel, even with Barcelona in it, is a bit of an open group compared to some of the others, where you could say group of death, etc., etc. Here, it should be competitive at a minimum.
So passing on to Shakhtar, of course. Let us know how is your season going in the beginning. Of course, how do you think, or if you think, the war still has an impact on the players and also on supporters? How is Shakhtar going to manage all these circumstances and still have a word to say in this Champions League group?
Yeah, so I guess we'll start from obviously how the season has begun. So far, Shakhtar are also unbeaten, just like yourselves. One draw, 3-4 wins in there. Similarly, nothing too out of the ordinary. I think they've had one 4-1 win, and the others have been relatively narrow matches.
Mm-hmm.
And then one big 3-3 against Krivbas. At the moment, they are similarly in a bit of a transition period, because this summer they've got a new manager, Van Leuven, Dutch coach who came in, who was last season the manager of Zorya Londonsk, known for playing sort of open attacking football. That's sort of one of his key qualities that he likes to play. And Shakhtar have brought in quite a number of new players. A few have left. But ultimately, I feel that compared to maybe the team that played in the Champions League last year, where we saw that they got upsets, well, they got good results against Real Madrid, 1-1,
Exactly.
beat Celtic, drew Celtic, and then also beat Leipzig away.
Mm-hmm.
That team, I would say, is probably not. The team now is probably not as good as that one, because a lot was riding on that team. There was a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline from the war, a lot of motivation, because it was sort of the first season back after the full-scale invasion began. And you know, the coach back then, Ihor Jovicevic, he was very much this very passionate person, a motivator, with how he spoke and with everything that he stood for, really. Whereas Van Leuven, he's a bit more, I guess, separate from the players. He's not one of those guys that'll put his arms around everyone and sort of be celebrating with them and all that kind of thing. He's a bit more a direct hierarchy guy. He'll be watching over, instilling what he wants to do.
It's an office coach.
Yeah, I would say, well, a lot more than that. A lot closer to that than Jovicevic was. Whereas, although Van Leeuwen, he's got a lot of experience with youth teams. Over the past, he's worked at Shakhtar back in like in the mid 2000s to early 2010s, where he was working in their academy. He was their academy director, working very closely there. Then he went to Israel for a bit, where he was working with Maccabi Tel Aviv. He was working in their academy and then also in their first team. And then most recently at Zorya, where he brought in a number of young talents and sort of nurtured them into better players, per se. Mm-hmm. And I feel that that's what he wants to do at Shakhtar. And so far, it's very early days in his career. So they have been playing okay in the league. I wouldn't say it's like, wow, these guys are completely blowing everything away, but they still have got the best squad in the Ukrainian Premier League. They probably are the best team in the Ukrainian Premier League for now in terms of grinding out results, and even compared to sort of their nearest competitors like Dynamo Kiev, the traditional ones, and other teams around them. But I feel that they are still in this transition, and it's difficult to predict how they're going to do in this Champions League campaign, because I saw a few friendlies of theirs in the summer. They played against Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium just before the season started, and they lost 5-1. So I know that was a friendly, of course, and obviously everything's different, but just given the circumstances, I feel that the quality in the team is probably slightly lower than that we saw in the Champions League last year. So it might be a bit more difficult for them coming up into this campaign. However, I still expect them to, well, I think a lot of people are expecting them still to put in a show, maybe not get battered every game, but certainly be competitive enough in each match to try and at least fight maybe for a third spot. Because I feel that, that second place, whilst it's, an aim that anyone can do, it's more of a aspiration rather than a real possibility per se. So we're recording this. They've just won 1-0 on the weekend. A similar narrow result to yourselves on this weekend as well. And they'll be heading off to Hamburg very soon to get preparations underway there before the match on Tuesday.
Going back to the coach topic, where he said he's used to work with young players. One thing that you see, like when you look to Shakhtar's team, it's a very young team. Even the arrivals, you have like players with 18, 20 years that came. So what balance do you think? Because when you look to this team, you can probably think they are young, don't have the Champions League experience. But on the other side, if you have a manager that's used to work with them, can maybe get the best of them in this level. What do you think that it's going to be the balance that coach will come up with?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because they've got a very tiny bit of experience with some of the older players that are, I guess, core to the team. So Taras Panenka is the captain, very much influential and instrumental in the side. However, he is relatively old. He has had a number of quite hard injuries over the past number of years, which means that it's difficult to see him maybe lasting full games, and how fit he will be for the entire group stage campaign, we will see. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of young talent in there, a lot of inexperience as well. So the comparison now is that Shakhtar, they don't have many Brazilians like they did in the past. They're focusing more on a slightly different market. They're going for Eastern European talents. They're going for a few other South American talents that are maybe slightly more untapped, that they haven't yet experienced, that they haven't yet taken a look into yet. However, there are some promising players in there. So like this summer, as you mentioned, they have brought in a number of players. I think he made his debut for Israel national team in the last international break. Stav Lemkin, he's a new centre-back that they've got there, who I think has got a good chance of potentially starting in the game against Porto. You've also got Azarov, who's a left-back Georgian, who has arrived from the Georgian league. He was playing for Crvena Zvezda, and then he had other experience in the Georgian league before that, and now he's sort of the starting left-back for Shakhtar. So these players have played a bit together now. So I feel that they should be just about ready to, I don't know, take on the next step, as in playing in the Champions League, compared to what the Ukrainian Premier League is, and which is a lot less lower of a league, of course, and quality-wise, sadly, has dropped since obviously the full-scale invasion began, because a lot of foreigners have left. The foreigners that have arrived are probably of a lesser quality in terms of talent than they used to be able to attract. And on top of that, the intensity in the Ukrainian Premier League is a lot lower than the Champions League. But we will see, because there are some players that have got a lot to prove. Sort of shop window per se in the Champions League this year. So you've got Kashchuk, who's a left winger, right winger, can play on either wing really. He played quite well at the under-21 Euros this summer, and he's hoping sort of to show himself in a position that maybe Mihajlo Mudryk excelled in last season for Shakhtar. There's the experience of Alexander Zubkov on the wing, who's got experience in the Champions League last year with Shakhtar, of course. Scored in both games against Real Madrid, so he knows how to do that against some of the bigger sides. And he's also got experience in that tournament with Ferencváros in the past. However, I feel probably the key guy, the one that everyone will probably have to watch out for sure, and I guess the one closest to Mudryk in terms of potential for a big move somewhere in the future, maybe not for 100 million euros, but for some sort of big enough fee, Jorge Sudakov, the attacking midfielder that Shakhtar have got. A dynamic talent, very low centre of gravity, likes to pick up balls sort of on the halfway line, starting attacks, driving with the ball, good dribbler, contributes to goals sometimes, a great passer. So I think this will be his tournament or Champions League to show himself as best as he can to try and get a move away. But overall, so far, I think we don't 100% know what to expect from Shakhtar in the Champions League. And I feel that this game against Porto is going to be very interesting and quite eye-opening with how Shakhtar are going to cope and how it's going to set a precedent for the remainder of the campaign, especially with this being the match that is at home, in inverted commas, because we're going to be playing in Hamburg, away from home. However, it's expected to be quite a large capacity in terms of the fans that are going to be coming to the game. Over 30,000 season tickets sold for this match, and plenty more tickets to be sold in and around the game. So it will be very interesting to watch. And so far, I'm not 100% sure how Shakhtar will cope against a team like Porto, who have got pace in the team, quite a physical centre forward who likes to score goals and is quite difficult to mark. I think it might be tough, but like you say, you've got Pepe in there, who's also very, got a lot of experience, but rather old as well. We'll see if maybe some of those younger players in the Shakhtar team can try and exploit that. But I am currently none the wiser really on what exactly we will see on Tuesday.
And how do you felt with when Barcelona, Porto, and then of course Antwerp came up in the draw? Do you felt like Shakhtar had a bit of luck with the like you said, it's a really open group. Of course, the first game will be really important to see if the level of Shakhtar can compete with Porto and even Barcelona. Of course, Royal Antwerp, I would say it's the least favorite of the four clubs. If you felt a bit of luck, or on the other hand, like it's Porto and Barcelona, two big teams from Europe, it's going to be real tough.
A mix, really. I think maybe from my personal perspective, I thought that this is actually quite a fun group. It's not one where Shakhtar have got no chances whatsoever, but they have got an opportunity to try and show for themselves, to try and maybe get a few draws or something in some of these matches, and maybe get the odd win against potentially Royal Antwerp at home or something like that. So it will be interesting to see how it goes. But like you said, it's not going to be straightforward. Porto got loads of experience, as we've mentioned. Barcelona, I would say out of the top seeded sides, they are one of the teams that I wasn't too, I guess, afraid of facing per se, because I know that they won the league last year, and they started okay, but they're not, I guess, undefeatable compared to say, Real Madrid have been last season, where they made a good show of it in the competition until they obviously met up with Man City. But Shakhtar can go toe to toe if they want to and if they're up for it. Just be interesting to see if Leuven's side can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, I think it's going to be it should be competitive, in my opinion. I think that that each side can beat the other if they really wanted to, maybe bar Barcelona, and hopefully we can see some interesting results in this group.
The sequence of games can be really important too. You are going to end playing us home, so in Porto, and before that you have a game in your home against Antwerp. You have a double journey, double game against Barcelona.
Yeah,
that's going to be like a main point in group to Shakhtar, because if maybe now against Porto, if you get a draw, for example, and then you have two guarantees wins, let's assume against Antwerp. Those two games against Barcelona, like you have really good results against Real Madrid last year. Those two games can be really important. Do you think Shakhtar and the managing team will, because they could, like, it's Barcelona, let's not even try, let's focus on the other games. But do you think they can focus even more on these two games to have a chance in this group?
Yeah, absolutely. However, I feel, well, especially if we see what happens in the first two matches. So obviously, like you say, got Porto in the first home game, and then they're playing Royal Antwerp away. So it depends how those two go, how they will approach the Barcelona sort of double header before the remaining fixtures, and how key they're going to be. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that I see that Shakhtar will take this tournament very seriously. I know that they really want to ensure that they have a European spring of any kind. I think that will be the main priority. So they will be fighting for second or third spot at a very minimum to try and ensure that they can continue in the European competitions next year. And I feel that there will be certain things that will make that possible. So like you say, there's going to be a lot of travel involved. So they're playing at home, but they are basically traveling to an away game. Yeah. From Ukraine, they'll probably be playing wherever in Lviv, and then they'll be coming out to Poland and then getting a flight from Poland to Hamburg if they're playing at home, or flying to wherever else they are if they're playing away. On top of that, though, you've also got the fact that the potential postponements of matches in the Ukrainian Premier League, if that does come to it, depending on how difficult the fixtures are, whether they're an away game or somewhere far away for them to be able to fulfill them and then come back for them. We will see, because that did happen quite a lot last season. It's happened to some teams that were playing in European qualifiers this summer. So let's see how that plays out going forward.
Yeah, about that topic, what impact do you think playing home but in a foreign stadium has for the players, that most of them are Ukrainian? What is going through their minds? Like, okay, now we're playing home against Porto, but we are in Hamburg, not in our city. I don't know if many of the players that being Ukraine are really from Donetsk, but what impact do you think that this fact has on their game?
Well, I mean, Shakhtar have not been playing in Donetsk since 2014.
Yeah.
So that's 9 years now that they have been away from home. So I think from a perspective of domestic matches, they're kind of used to traveling anywhere, especially the likes of Panenka, for example, who has been there from when they were playing in Donetsk. And to when they've been playing all over Ukraine, and now obviously with the full-scale invasion too, playing abroad as well. However, there's a lot of the side, I mean, a fair amount of the side played in the Champions League or the Europa League last year. So they've got a bit of experience in playing in Poland, where Ukraine's home matches were in 22-23. So they know what it's like. If anything, I feel it's a slight positive for them, because in Ukraine during the war, no fans are allowed in stadiums. So they're playing behind closed doors, not really any atmosphere at all.
Yeah.
And then they come to Hamburg, for example, and like I said, over 30,000 tickets sold. And I feel that a lot of them will be just local Germans or Hamburg fans that want to see some European football. And hopefully they can become adopted Shakhtar fans in this season to sort of help them get on. Because Poland, there's a lot of Ukrainians that live in Poland, be it refugees or also economic migrants that have lived there for a long time. However, in the stadium that they were playing in Legia Warsaw, it was like 31,000 seat stadium. I think they got quite close to sell out against Real Madrid. It was like 25,000 or something like that. And then the other two matches against RB Leipzig and Celtic, they were around 19,000, 20,000. So, 2/3 full.
Yeah.
I think that in Hamburg, just because there's a bit of a bigger footballing culture in Germany, people want to go and see those games. It's going to be a lot more of an exciting atmosphere, a lot more electric, and hopefully a lot fuller in the ground. So it just should give them that additional boost if they need it.
Yeah. So this game, Shakhtar Porto, is going to be in Hamburg. It's now on the 19th of September. I'm going to ask you to predict a result, if you want, with the scorers, with the details that you want.
Sure. You know what? I'm going to go optimistic as much as I possibly can, at least. I think maybe 1-1 for this opening game. I see someone, maybe someone like Subkov scoring for Shakhtar, and Taremi for you guys. I feel that would be an interesting sort of opener and ensure that the next couple games will at least have a bit of excitement left, that Shakhtar is not starting off with a loss straight away and everything can be from any perspective. But it's going to be tough. I know that for a fact. I just fingers crossed that Shakhtar can put in a good fight at the bare minimum. We want to see just some good football, not heads down for sort of after 90 minutes or when they concede. Just try and give it a bit of a competition and ensure that some of those players can show a good performance.
I'm sure that a draw in the first game would give an energy boost to the rest of the games, even if it's not a win. But I believe that if you won against Antwerp on the next game, it would give really nice perspectives to pass on the group stage. So, Andrew, I really appreciate your participation here. I'm just going to finish in Português, if you don't mind, to our listeners. Foi mais um episódio do Europa à Panenka. Espero que tenham gostado. Vamos acompanhar também com o Barcelona e com a Antuérpia. O jogo frente ao Shakhtar é já terça-feira, às 8 da noite, e veremos como é que ambas as equipas vão sair. Teremos também as participações de Benfica e Sporting, e portanto fiquem à espera que vão continuar a sair este tipo de episódios. Muito obrigado, fiquem bem e até à próxima.
Posse de bola para Portugal, vai Éder, chuta!